What's going on YouTube? I'm Ben, and in this video, we're going to talk about legal stuff. Hey guys, so before I get started with this video and before I get sued, I must tell you that I am not a lawyer and all of the information in this video is for entertainment purposes only. So it generally goes without saying that all businesses in America are governed by our ruling law. Unless, of course, you are a drug dealer or some sort of mobster, in which case you are probably being monitored by the FBI. But for the rest of us that run legitimate businesses, we sometimes find ourselves in scenarios where we require the counsel or advice from an actual lawyer. Now, I really just wanted to do a video on this because I don't think it's talked about enough, and I also think that a lot of people are very misinformed when it comes to issues related to legal aspects of their business, particularly in recruiting. The first thing that a lot of people get confused about is whether or not an actual lawyer needs to either create or review the contracts that you utilize with your clients. Now, the short answer to whether a lawyer needs to create or review a contract for you is no. Now, a contract does sound like an incredibly complex and intricate document, but let me explain to you why you don't need to pay a lawyer $1,000 or more to create or review your contracts that you use in recruiting. So first things first, anyone who knows what they're doing in recruiting and staffing, not talking about absolute beginners here, but people that know what they're doing in the business, can generally draft up contracts on their own, inserting the clauses that they know they need to cover themselves, using a little bit of help, maybe from the internet and maybe from your good old brain. You really just need to know what type of verbiage to put into the contract that covers you from any liability that might occur. We're talking direct hire here once again, and create verbiage that makes it fair for the client as well. Simply put, you create a document that's easily modifiable that you can utilize with client after client after client. Generally speaking, when you create a contract, your client and or its legal team will review that contract anyways. So right then and there, you actually have a built-in mechanism as to how your contract will be vetted and checked out anyways. Now, I have personally created my own contracts with lots and lots of research online, as well as getting some examples of contracts online so that I can know exactly which clauses are super important to include in your contract. Now, you really just want to make sure that your contract has 4 specific clauses in it as critical items. Now, there's a lot of other things you'll put in your contract, but these are definitely elementary items. So one would be your payment terms, second would be severance terms, the third would be your guarantee clause, and the last one would be your declaration of right to represent, meaning who owns the candidate when who engages the candidate. Now, the contracts that I use have proven to be pretty much 100% sound. I've had basically 0 issues with the contracts that I sign with my clients. I might have to edit a guarantee period or maybe change the fee percentage, but those are typical things that come with negotiation during contracts, but not the actual contract and the verbiage itself. Now, I don't want to be too general about that because contracts do come in all shapes and sizes, and you can include exclusivity terms or retainer terms or anything under the sun pretty much, depending on your client and their needs and your negotiations on what the actual deal will look like. Now, the next item that I want to address, number 2, is that you do not need to have a lawyer on retainer as a recruiting agency. Now, if you're running a 7 or 8-figure recruiting agency that requires legal issues all of the time, disagree with me all you want. I totally get it. I know you have the money to retain an attorney 24/7 for any legal issues that may come up. You probably even have an in-house attorney. It's just pretty much that simple. So when people say more money, more problems, that's pretty much how it goes. And so the people that are making 7, 8 figures in their recruiting businesses, yeah, you're going to come into some legal issues and you probably need an attorney on retainer. But for those of you running a recruiting agency in the range of low six figures earnings, you definitely do not need to pay $1,000 a month to keep an attorney on retainer. So the third item that I want to address is what happens if I get sued or if I have to sue someone. So first things first on this, let's cover why you would be sued or why you would need to sue someone in the first place. Basically, it comes down to one thing. If you or the client does not abide exactly to the terms of the written signed contract, either party can sue either party for pretty much anything related to the document and what's in it. So let's say a client doesn't pay their fee. Let's say that you don't replace a candidate within their guarantee period. Okay, now it's time to panic. This is when you need an attorney. Totally kidding, totally kidding. In this scenario, you actually don't necessarily need an attorney whatsoever, so long as you play it cool, and yes, I will explain. For one thing, most of these scenarios can be worked out between you and the client without involving any third parties whatsoever. For instance, maybe you're in a scenario where your client has not paid you. What you need to do is basically continue to send them invoices for approximately 3 months or so that are clearly labeled unpaid or late. Explain to them exactly what's going on. Try to connect with your point of contact as much as possible to get to the core of what the issue is as to why they're not paying you now. Now, if you are at fault for, let's say, not replacing a candidate during their guarantee period, well, you should not do that. You should stick with the contract and replace the candidates during their guarantee period. Now, if either of these scenarios arises and after sending a ton of invoices, or if you actually don't replace a candidate, you really don't even need to go to a lawyer or anything for this. You can actually settle this another way, and it's called arbitration. Arbitration is where both parties come to the same table with an official arbitrator certified by the government, and you attempt to settle the issues without lawyers and courts. Now, in most cases, about 90% based on my research in the recruitment business, if an issue goes through arbitration, it will get resolved. The dispute will get resolved. Whether it's your fault or their fault, both parties will generally come to some sort of compromise via the arbitrator, who is an official representative of the government. They're certified. They know exactly how to handle this. It's very similar to a lawyer, but a little bit different. And you don't have to go through the court system, and you don't have to pay a lawyer. An arbitrator is much cheaper. It's a way easier way to settle things, and 90% of cases get taken care of this way. And of course, to be really specific, what I mean is the outcome of an arbitration could be that the government ends up forcing the company to pay up what their fee is that they owe you, or they inevitably force you to refund your fee that you received if you're not actually going to replace the candidate that you signed a contract to replace. So as you can see, it's pretty much like going to court, but not really like going to court. So you definitely want to end up in arbitration before court, because court and lawyers are a lot more messier than arbitration. All right, so the fourth thing that I wanted to address about lawyers, contracts, and recruiting and how it all relates together is that it's not all rainbows and butterflies, and there are some scenarios where you will most definitely need to retain an attorney. This would be a scenario where maybe you've gone through arbitration and you've actually settled on a compromise where your client is going to pay that late fee that they owe you and they haven't paid up yet. In this case, you will need to get an attorney and you will need to file a suit against them. On the same note, you can also be sued and someone else can retain an attorney to sue you for a myriad of reasons, whether it's related to your recruiting transactions or whether it's related to just your recruiting practices, such as maybe you left an agency and your old company is suing you because you're violating a non-compete. This is very common. This frequently happens where you work at a recruiting agency for a while and then you leave and then you start to go after the same clients that the recruiting agency you worked at was going after, and you make a boatload of money by getting deals with them. Yeah, they're gonna sue you. So my advice to you, which of course is for entertainment purposes only, is to follow any contract to a T and make sure you just play by the rules. If you do just that, your business should be entirely safe from ever having to utilize an attorney. If you enjoyed this video, please smash the like button down below, hit the alert button, and subscribe if you're not already. I vlog pretty much every day, so I'll be seeing you tomorrow. Until then.